More than 30 million Americans have already voted in this election cycle.
More than 25 million Americans have already voted early, setting records across the country.
In this election, I will end inflation, I will stop the invasion, and I will bring back the American dream.
We understand we have an opportunity before us to turn the page.
I'll also make interest on car loans fully tax deductible, but only for cars made in America.
And make no mistake, we will win. We will win.
Well, the tight race for the White House gets even tighter in the final sprint with just 10 days until the presidential election. How the candidates are trying to secure this.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. It is October 2024, and we all know what time that means. Presidential elections in the United States, 2024. Now, when it comes to what we talk about over here, which is usually infrastructure and all types of city design and planning, these are actually the least important elections, as your local and state politicians are the ones who really decide how cities look. But since this is the one that everyone is talking about right now, and is so imminent, I thought it'd be a good idea to go over the states that have the lowest voter turnout. Now, when talking about voter turnout, there are two metrics that are used. There's the voting eligible population and the voting age population. Voting age population includes everyone who is over the age of 18 in a given state, whether they're actually allowed to vote or not. Whereas the voting eligible population excludes people with felonies or people who are not actually citizens, but are still old enough to have vote otherwise. So the way we determine voter turnout is by taking the actual number of votes cast and dividing it by that VEP, or voting eligible population in a given state. So on this list, we're going to go through the 10 with the lowest voting turnout in the 2020 elections. And as a bonus, towards the end, I'll quickly go through the states with the highest voting turnout as of 2020. So now that we all understand what's going on, let's get into the video.
To start things off, we're going to do a dishonorable mention, which would be in the 11th place as the least voting state. That state would be New York. In 2020, New York had over 14 million eligible voters, with a little under 8.7 million showing up to vote, for a turnout of 61.71%. And you can already guess which way New York votes. Now, on to the official top 10. In 2020, the 10th least voting state was down in the deep south, Alabama. Alabama had an eligible population of 3.78 million, with 2.325 million votes cast. This resulted in a turnout of 61.46%. Alabama was won by the Republican candidate in 2020. The state has a Republican governor with 2 Republican senators and sends 6 Republicans along with 1 Democrat to Congress in the House of Representatives. The 9th least voting state is in the Midwest, Indiana. Indiana had an eligible voting population of 5.025 million with 3.067 million votes cast. This was a turnout of 61.06%. Indiana was also won by the Republican candidate in 2020. The state has a Republican governor, 2 Republican senators, and sends 7 Republicans and 2 Democrats to Congress. In 8th place is Alabama's deep south neighbor, Mississippi. Mississippi had an eligible voting population of 5.025 million, with 1.325 million votes cast. Mississippi was won by the Republican candidate as well. The state also has a Republican governor, along with 3 Republicans and 1 Democrat in the House of Representatives. And both state senators are Republican as well. The 7th least voting state is New Mexico. New Mexico had an eligible voting population of 1.534 million and had around 928,000 votes cast, for a turnout of 60.49%. New Mexico was won by the Democratic candidate. The state has a Democrat governor and sends 2 Democrat senators to Congress along with 3 Democrats in the House. A clean sweep by the Democrats in this state, it seems. And on to 6th place. In 6th is the big old state of Texas. Texas had an eligible voting population of 18.982 million and 11.35 million votes cast, for a turnout of 59.79%. Texas was won by the Republican candidate. Texas has a Republican governor and 2 Republican senators. The state sent 25 Republicans and 12 Democrats to the House, and 1 House seat is currently vacant. Halfway down the list, in 5th place, is Tennessee. In 2020, Tennessee had a voting eligible population of 5.174 million, with 3.065 million votes cast, for a turnout of 59.24%. The state was won by the Republican candidate. Tennessee has a Republican governor and 2 Republican senators. The state has 8 Republicans and 1 Democrat in the House. In the 4th spot is West Virginia. In 2020, West Virginia had a voting eligible population of 1.404 million with about 803,000 votes cast for a turnout of 57.19%. West Virginia was also won by the Republican candidate. The state has a Republican governor, one Republican senator, and also a now independent Senator Joe Manchin, who recently switched from Democrat to independent. The state has 2 Republicans in the U.S. House. In third place is another southern state, Arkansas. In 2020, Arkansas had a voting eligible population of 2.178 million, with 1.224 million votes cast for a turnout of 56.17%. Arkansas was won by the Republican candidate in 2020. The state has a Republican governor and 2 Republican senators. All 4 House members are also Republican, which amounts to a clean sweep of Arkansas by the Republicans. The runner-up, the second least voting state in 2020, was Hawaii. Hawaii had a voting eligible population of 1.047 million, with just under 580,000 votes cast for a turnout of 55.35%. Hawaii was won by the Democrat candidate in 2020. The state is completely dominated by the Democrats, with a Democrat governor, 2 Democrat senators, and 2 Democrats in the House. And the winner of today's list, the least voting state in the U.S. in 2020, was Oklahoma. In 2020, Oklahoma had a voting eligible population of 2.875 million, with 1.565 million for a turnout of 54.43%. The state went to the Republican candidate in 2020. The complete opposite of second place Hawaii, Oklahoma is completely dominated by the Republicans. The state has a Republican governor, 2 Republican senators, and 5 Republicans in the U.S. House. And there it is, guys. Those are your 10 least voting states per the 2020 U.S. elections. And quickly for reference, let's take a look at the 10 states with the highest voter turnout in the 2020 elections. In 10th place was New Jersey with 72.04%. Iowa was in 9th at a near tie, rounded off also to 72.04%. Michigan was in 8th with 73.27%. New Hampshire at 73.96%. Maine at 74.87%. Wisconsin at 75.04%. Washington has 75.33%. Neighboring Oregon was slightly ahead, but also rounded off to 75.33%. And Colorado was in second place with 76.69%. And the number 1 highest turnout in the 2020 U.S. elections was Minnesota, which has 79.21%. So there it is, folks, America's least voting states per the 2020 elections. Did any of the states on this list surprise you? What do you think are some of the reasons for a lower turnout in some states compared to others? Did you actually vote in the 2020 elections? Will you vote here in 2024? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.